Hi, and welcome to Storytime. I'm Kimberlyn, and I'm here as your guide to inspired living. When you find yourself in need of inspiration or guided introspection, that's what I do. That's why I'm here. Whether it's related to your practice on the mat or out in the world, to me, it's all yoga. And by that, I mean it's all part of living and learning. In other words, we are not here to be perfect or perform, but rather to practice. So let me be clear. I am not here because I have it all figured out. On the contrary, I'm here because I believe that no matter what we've accomplished, what we've endured, life is better when we come together authentically and compassionately to share our stories. So Storytime, for those of you who are perhaps attending for the first time, is a virtual meeting space where we gather to connect. And this journey of life is all about connection. And yoga is the practice of building and nurturing authentic connections. By sharing our stories, we share our hearts. We connect more deeply, more intimately with ourselves and with each other. So whether it's live and in real time or anytime on your time, we're here to be together. Welcome to Storytime. I'm so glad that you showed up. So our story today is Ganga. We meet Ganga, and it's specifically her origin story from the yoga myths. Now, Ganga is the daughter of Lord Brahma, who becomes the great Ganges River. Now, the birth story of Ganga and how she became a river tells of a journey from places even higher than the Himalayan mountaintops, a trip from the heavens themselves. Ganga's journey is a long one with many twists and turns, filled with tales of sorrow and joy, hardship and renewed hope. The Ganges River, known as the Ganga in India, holds immense cultural, spiritual, and historical significance in Indian society. It is revered as a goddess and considered the most sacred river in Hinduism. The Ganges, however, is not just a physical entity, but a symbol of purity, life, and sustenance, deeply intertwined with the spiritual practices and cultural traditions of India. Pilgrims from all over the country and even the world flock to its banks to perform rituals, bathe in its waters, and seek blessings. Its importance is also reflected in the countless festivals and religious ceremonies conducted along its banks, making it a focal point for collective spirituality and community life. Now, in the context of yoga, the Ganges River is equally significant. Many of the most revered ashrams and centers of yoga are located along the river, particularly in cities like Rishikesh and Varanasi. For practitioners of yoga, the Ganges represents a spiritual current, mirroring the inner journey towards enlightenment. The river's serene and sacred environment offers an ideal setting for meditation, reflection, and the practice of various yogic disciplines. Now, the Ganges is seen as a divine connector between the physical and the spiritual realms, embodying the flow of life and energy that yogis seek to harness and understand through the practices. Thus, the Ganges is not just a geographical landmark, but a profound symbol of spiritual aspiration and the transformative power of yoga in Indian, but also in our modern day culture. So the Ganga or Ganges is a sacred and beautiful river in India that flows from the high reaches of the Himalayas through the northern plains and down to the Bay of Bengal. It is named after the goddess Ganga. Now the river is believed to have descended from heaven to earth, purifying everything in its path. This is the story for today's story time. So take a breath with me. We pick up our storytelling right where we left off last month. When Lord Vishnu, as the avatar Vamana, took his second step over heaven, reclaiming King Bali's domain, Lord Brahma had taken the chance to pour water over Vishnu's big toe, catching the drops in the small jug that he carried with him. Now, one day soon after, he saw a tiny baby girl swimming and diving in the water. Lord Brahma scooped her out and placed her on his palm. "My child, do you know that you have in you the divine energy of Lord Vishnu? My precious one, I will name you Ganga and raise you as my own." So perhaps not your traditional birth story. But Ganga grew graceful and sweet and gave much joy to all who knew her. Her father, Lord Brahma, and all the other gods of heaven adored her. She had a gay and light-hearted sense of humor and laughed easily, sometimes perhaps too easily. Alas, one day her light-hearted laughter got her into deep trouble. When Ganga was still a young girl, sage Durvasa came to visit heaven. Now, unlike Ganga, sage Durvasa was not known for his sense of humor. You might call him Mr. Grumpy Pants. On the contrary, he was famous for his ill temper and powerful curses. And anyone who met him was very cautious not to make him angry. One day, as he was out walking, he bumped into Pavan, the invisible god of wind. Now, Pavan's powerful gusts caught sage Durvasa in a small whirlwind that blew him around and around until, to Durvasa's great dismay, all of his clothes began to blow right off of him. He clutched at his shawl, but every time he tried to wrap it around him, the wind would tug it right back off again. Try as he might, the surly sage could not gather his clothes together. How would you respond? It's not surprising that he has some frustration. We've all probably fought the wind on certain occasions. The gods knew enough to turn their faces away. Even if they were amused, they had the sense not to show it. But little Ganga had no sense. She pointed and laughed gaily. Sage Durvasa could not stand to be made fun of. Grimly hanging on to his clothes, he wheeled around in terrible anger. "Girl, you need to learn proper manners. You are a disgrace to heaven. You mock the saints. You have no place here. You must leave. You must go to earth as a river." The sage cursed Ganga. He went on to say, "When humans wash their dirty clothes in your water, you will realize what a privilege it was to have lived in heaven." And Ganga cried out, "Please pardon me, O sage. I am sorry that I laughed at you. Please, please release me from your curse. I won't misbehave again. I don't want to be a river." The gods gathered in her defense, pleading with Durvasa to excuse the carelessness of her laughter. After all, she is just a young girl. But Durvasana softened only a little bit. I cannot take back what I give, he told Ganga. I gave you a curse, a well-deserved curse, and you must go to earth when you are called. But I do see that you are sincerely sorry. I will give you a blessing too. As a river, you will be worshipped as long as you live on earth. Your water will purify the souls of humanity and release them from their sins. Now, Ganga was heartbroken at the thought of leaving her home and friends. All the other gods were shocked and saddened that they would eventually have to lose their darling Ganga. But Ganga had a good heart, and after thinking it over, she realized that she had been given the chance to help ease human sorrows. In turn, this thought eased her own burden of sorrow and gave her hope as she waited for the moment she would be called to earth. However, that moment was still some years away and will wait for a later story time. In fact, we'll continue this story next time. For now, we'll take a brief look at some of the takeaways from this story for our modern day practice. Now remember, I'll go into more depth in 2 weeks' time in our coaches chat, where we'll go deeper into the philosophy behind this practice, behind this story. I hope to see you then. So, takeaway lessons from Ganga's origin story. The first that comes to mind for me is to accept responsibility for our actions and their consequences. We call it karma. The second is, when things go awry, can we shift? Can we make lemonade when all we have is lemons? This letting go, this aparigraha, is part of Patanjali's tradition. Now, in the broad scope of yoga tradition, taking responsibility for our actions is deeply rooted in the concept of karma, which teaches that our thoughts, words, and deeds have consequences that shape our future experiences. Yoga encourages us to act with awareness, with attention, understanding that we are responsible for the energy that we put back into the world. This responsibility is not about self-blame, but about recognizing our role, our agency in creating and cultivating harmony or disharmony in our lives and the lives of others through practices like self-reflection, svadhyaya, and non-harming, ahimsa. Yoga guides us to take ownership of our actions, accept the outcomes, and make conscious choices that align with our highest values, fostering both personal growth and collective well-being. In this story, Ganga accepts reassignment as a river, and Durvasa accepts his harsh response, his overreaction, perhaps, by offering a blessing in addition to the curse. They both change. Similarly, in yoga tradition, making good from a bad situation is seen as an opportunity for growth and transformation, rooted in the principle of tapas, or disciplined effort. Yoga teaches that challenges and difficulties are simply part of life. But how we respond to these challenges is what shapes our path. By cultivating resilience, mindfulness, and acceptance, we can turn adversity into a chance, into an opportunity for inner growth. Practices like meditation and pranayama help calm the mind, help us to gain clarity, especially in tough times. While the philosophy of santosha, contentment, encourages finding peace and positivity even in our discomfort, yoga reminds us that every challenge carries potential for wisdom and transformation, allowing us to emerge stronger and more grounded. In this story, Ganga reframes her punishment as a way of doing her dharma to ease human sorrows and suffering. So I share these stories to expand our minds and our hearts, to grow in authentic alignment and to help us, you and me, to move freely through the tasks of each day and the seasons of life. Every day is an invitation to begin again in greater intention and alignment. Connection is key to receiving and benefiting from that invitation. My invitation to you is just that. Let's connect. I want to hear from you. How are you living your yoga? What takeaways did you find and discover in today's story? When I hear from you, I use your questions and examples to expand and personalize the messages in Coach's Chat so that they support you, so that I can support you in living well. So email me, join the Life's Work app, or come on in to the studio. Whether you visit us in person or online, whether it's for one-on-one or a group experience, we want to meet you in the practice. We want to support you in living your life's work. So I'm going to close, but if you have questions, we'll come back. Receive this blessing. May you breathe deeply and move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste. So, for those of you who are here and in real time, you have an opportunity to propose your questions, observations, challenges even, or just a comment on what your thoughts on today's story time will be. Any questions, comments?
So something that came up that I'm going to discuss with the Women's Way group on Thursday is the impact versus intention.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the same thing. Her intention was
Right.
not to annoy him.
Yeah.
But that was the impact
Right.
he took from it.
Right.
Right? And I think it worked out beautifully because she apologized and then he let go a little bit.
Right. So there was give on both sides.
Give and take, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the time that somebody made the comment to me about impact versus intention, I had absolutely no idea what the impact was of what I had said.
Right.
And then a year later, how long it was, somebody connect me. So, coming back at the moment, gives everybody a chance to diffuse that situation.
Absolutely.
And shift and change and
connect.
And connect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As opposed to living in our own assumptions, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that, if nothing happened, all is well. As opposed to, if nothing happened, maybe there was not authentic connection. So how do we close that loop, right? And this is bringing us back to that sense that those relationships that matter, those are the ones that we want to pay extra attention to make sure that our impact is in line with our attention and our intention, right? Now, I think that the punishment outweighed the crime.
Yes.
Right? And especially as someone who, you've all heard me, invite people to laugh at me when I'm doing laughter yoga. That's not because I want people to laugh at me, right? It's because I'm comfortable in that context for that being enough of a reason. If I can invite someone into the bliss of laughter for no reason, and it makes me kind of sad for Durvasa that he can't, one, receive criticism, right? He's interpreting it as criticism.
Right.
She's just interpreting it as perhaps this sense of uncontrolled joy, right? I mean, I think of Marilyn Monroe when she covers her skirt, right? In the sense that photo is so famous, right? Kind of flirty, kind of playful, but also kind of chaotic in the sense that why are we so resistant to the flow of life? The flow of when things are out of our control. And so his inability to shift resulted in her consequences even as a young person. Now, I'm kind of stepping over into what might make its way into the chat conversation, but this also seems to come up for me in terms of raising children, right? When we expect more from them than they are mature enough to do. But whether they're children in chronological age or children in their spiritual maturity, asking others to be more than they are is a himsa failure, right? It is not a kindness. And so in this way, I would love, and this is not the story, but I would love for Vishnu to come back and scold Durvasa, is that his name? Whatever his name is.
Sage.
The sage, right? To scold him for overreacting.
Right.
And yet there's also in the mythology this undercurrent that once magic, once a curse or a boon has been presented, you cannot take it back. And so he tries to counter that, right? And that is kind of really the in a nutshell what karma is. We can't undo what's been done, right? So if there has been harm done intentionally or unintentionally, I can't undo it. But as I teach, there is doing and non-doing, there is redoing, and then there is undoing. So what can we redo and undo when we own responsibility for what the consequences, the impact of our actions, even when they are not intended? Thanks for being here. Have a great week. I hope to see you next time. James, send me your thoughts, okay? Okay. Well, that